In the previous part of the tutorial we left off where we performed the inner join query. If you still are not very comfortable with it, you can always just watch the previous video again and watch it over and over until you grab this concept. So, now we'll need an array to store all the retrieved values in. But first I want to show you this query in PHP myadmin and see what it actually returns. So go, and this is what you see: username, user ID, message, name. Alright, I hope that makes it a bit more clear. So now let's go back to the Shoutbox again and the coding. So we'll need an array for it. Shouts equals array. Now to populate this array we'll use a technique that you've used more often. I'm pretty sure of that. We will use MySQL fetch assoc. So while R, which is short for row, equals MySQL fetch assoc, which stands for associative query, shouts, and this square bracket notation here is very important because it means adding a new item to the array, equals another array. And there we will do this. User ID is equal to what's equal to. I mean that arrow, of course, our user ID, username, our username, message, our message, and finally name, our name. And there we have it. Using this technique makes it very easy to access all the retrieved values, especially if you're using a templating system of sorts. Now let's actually go about displaying the values. Since we're working with an array here, it's logical to use the for each loop to loop over it. That looks like this: for each shouts s simply short for shouts, echo s username, and s message, and then a line break. So since we have not actually included anything yet, we'll just do it here. We're going to get rid of this eventually, but just for demonstration purposes now we'll just include shouts.php. Then we'll see how that looks. So refresh this, there you have it. Right now this is still guessed, but that will change. That's what we're going to do now. You see that the rest works perfectly. So that's the problem I was talking about. We're always displaying the username of a registered user. But what if it's a guest shout? Then we'll need the name field. So we need to determine if the shout was made by a guest or not. We can do this using the user ID, since it will always be 0. So we're going to go back to shouts.php, and at the top of the for each loop we'll do this: user equals s user ID. So if the user ID is greater than 0, then user will be equal to username, otherwise to name. And then we will change this to user. And let's see what that looks like. There we go. The coolest, whatever you want to call it, an awesomeness. And what do we see here in the shouts table? Exactly. The coolest and awesomeness with their respective shouts and a user ID of 0. But here's a problem. It doesn't refresh, and actually we also didn't want to do this. We didn't want to include this here. So we're going to use some jQuery here. We want to make it more chat-like, because a shoutbox is sort of like a chat box. So you want it to refresh every now and then. Since Alex has been using jQuery in his tutorials, I will do the same thing, even though I prefer raw JavaScript. As I mentioned earlier, I have included jQuery through Google, but you can do it however you want. This is on index.php, by the way, just to be clear. Below that I have this script element here. We're going to add some jQuery to it. So document.ready, that's going to have a callback function. Let's terminate that. So shoutbox, dot load, not loud, shouts.php. Let's get rid of that. So this will just load it into the Shoutbox div. So this will still work the same, but it still won't refresh. And for that we will use the setInterval function. And then we just do the same thing again. And we want to do that every, say, 10 seconds. So first we check if the entire document was loaded, which is just a standard way to tell jQuery when to start. And then we load the shouts.php file into the Shoutbox div, which means that any output that's generated here in shouts.php will be displayed here in the Shoutbox div. However, it will do this only once. So after that we use the setInterval function to perform this every 10 seconds after it has first been loaded. To show you that it works, we'll just change this to 1 second and also add, say, rand 0 through 9 or something to it, and another line break. And there you see that it doesn't work. What did I do wrong this time? Let's see, I don't think I did anything wrong. Let's see. I'm making an awful lot of mistakes in this tutorial. I'm terribly sorry, but it should probably help you pretty well with debugging. I will pause the video for a while and then come back to you when I'm done debugging this thing. Alright, so the problem turned out to be a very simple typing error. I here had interval instead of interval. I really don't know how I can type a V instead of a T, but well, let's not care. So here we have it, and you see that it refreshes every second. Of course that's a bit much, so we'll just change that to 10 seconds again. And that's it for this small little Shoutbox. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe I will also make a tutorial on how to create a larger Shoutbox that uses the same database structure and all, but that also uses pagination. So that will use some other techniques than the ones I showed here. So, see you all in a next tutorial. Bye.